This next week at Texx Talks is all about our best chum and sponsor, Fulfils. What better way to cleanse yourself the week that was than participating in Fulfils Fridays? Head on over to any participating bar and restaurant, buy 2 Fulfils for $70 and drop your slip in the venue's box, and you could stand a chance to win some pretty fucking lekker prizes. This week, we are going to be giving away 2 sets of double tickets to Van Coke Wallet Presents Francois Van Coke Unplugged in Pretoria, powered by UBU, on Sunday, the 20th of December. Simply head over to Texx in the City's Instagram and tag the friend you would like to watch the show with. And remember to tag at Fulfils. Easy. Also head over to Francois Van Coke's social media pages to find out about the Van Coke Wallet, a new easy-to-download app to purchase Francois Van Coke merch, tickets for shows, and any other Van Coke things you can think of. Winners of our competition will be announced on Texx in the City's Instagram on Monday, the 30th of November, so stay tuned. Hello and welcome to Texx Talks. I am Texx, and today I am talking to a Zimbabwean-born artist and writer who, apart from lending her voice to some of the most scintillating house tracks I've ever heard, aims to challenge the status quo of the music industry's perspective on the role that women play in its success. With projects like Girls and #Women of House, she provides a platform to artists that are often unseen, and in doing so, she fulfills a crucial role in the education of our music scene at large. And for that, I am a proper fangirl. I am, of course, talking about Jackie Queens. Jackie, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm so excited to chat to you.
It's only a pleasure. I mean, I want to take today as an opportunity to learn everything about you, because I've been following you on social for a while, and you're very knowledgeable and engaging. And I'm also keen to pick your brain a little bit. But
Sure.
I think let's start with your heritage, because I know that you are Zimbabwean-born and that you spent some time in the UK before returning to South Africa. So is it safe for me to assume that you spent your schooling years in Zimbabwe? And if so, tell me about growing up in Zim.
Yes, I grew up in Zim and left when I had finished my A levels, actually. So school was great. I feel like I don't really remember much about that time, except for being someone who kind of did everything. Like I used to dance at school. I used to sing in the choir. I used to play basketball when I was in high school.
And Jordan puts up a jumper and hits with 6 seconds to go.
And then there was a time when I didn't actually play any sports. And then and then I was like a school class, what do you call them, you know, when you have those house, like a deputy house person. I used to do debate. Like I was just one of those people who just used to do a lot.
So you're basically like a total all-rounder.
You could say that, like, in the sense that I had many interests. Not to the extent that I was like someone with like a ton of badges. I was also very naughty, so
I can imagine you being naughty.
Yeah,
in the best possible way, though.
I was naughty. I was naughty at school. But yeah, I enjoyed it. You know, I've always been someone who loves learning. I think that, like, besides like all the sort of like typical teenage drama, I've always been someone who enjoys learning new things and reading. I used to read a lot. So it was nice. I would say I really enjoyed my childhood. Yeah.
So you were basically a sponge. And I feel like, you know what, when you're a kid, that's the time where, you know, you should be trying out 101 different things to get to form your personality, but also figure out what it is that you like.
That's true. I mean, I feel like I was just doing stuff for the sake of doing stuff. I don't ever remember doing anything for like explicitly an end goal, except for when I did athletics. Like this one time I did athletics and I did javelin, and I wanted to get into like the provincial team or whatever. But I think for the most part, I just, yeah. And even to a certain extent now, I pretty much just do stuff for the sake of doing it, for trying it. If I feel like I need to do it, I'll just do it. And who knows what happens after that.
That's awesome. But at what point do you then leave for the UK? Like, how old were you? What was the plan? And how long were you there for?
I left just after my A levels, so I think it was this the first year after my A levels. So I think I was like 19, and the plan was I was gonna go like and study and do something with my life. I just never did that. I was just like, I think I was like happy to be away from home and like in another country. Like it just never happened. I just went there and I just had like the best time of my life. I was partying. I was faffing about.
Where in the UK were you?
I ended up in Grays, which is like east. It's outside of London. It's like 45 southeast or something. I can't even remember. It's such a long time ago now. And I lived in London for a bit, so I really enjoyed that. That was like pretty much where I started developing a love for like British music. I mean, I always listened to British music, like growing up at home in Zim, because so many family members and like friends of friends of family were going to the UK. I mean, at the time, people used to go to the UK and you'd either stay there, like go as and do nursing or some other, studying or something like that. Or they would go for like months at a time. Like they'd go 6 months, they'd work and then they'd come back. So you'd find that you either knew somebody or, someone in the family had gone off to the UK and was now either living there or sort of traveling between there. And every time the music would sort of come back in some way. So I really spent a lot of time enjoying sort of the creative side of the UK. Music especially. I used to love going out to shows. That was pretty much all I used to do. I used to go out to shows. I used to go clubbing a lot. And yeah, it was a crazy time. But I look back on that period in my life and I think, there's sometimes when I feel like, I could have done this, I could have done that. But like now I look back and then I'm like, nah, like, I appreciate that I had that time.
Everything happened when it should have happened.
Yeah, like I appreciate that I had that time, because then I lived there for 6 years and then my mom was like, no, you need to come home. You're messing around. Like, come and do something with yourself. So I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And then, I came home to study, basically. So my family had moved from Zim to Cape Town at that point, and they'd been in Cape Town for quite a few years. And so
okay.
I moved there to study. And then once I started studying, I just couldn't stop. Like, I studied for like 5-6 years.
So tell me, what did you study?
I studied media. So for my undergrad, I did media and radio production. And then for honors, I did political communication, which is still under the media umbrella. So like, stuff like rhetoric and media research and anything that has to do with how political, social, economic, or whatever issues are reported in the media. So that's basically, what I did when I was studying in Cape Town.
And then talk to me about working at a theatrical dining restaurant. So, how did that come about? Was that in Cape Town?
Yeah, that was in Cape Town. So when I came to South Africa, my mom was like, when you go to varsity, you're obviously gonna need, to get a job and stuff, like to look after yourself and shit. So she was like, there's this one place where the waiters and waitresses sing, I think you'd be perfect there. But at the time that I came, they were closed. I think they were closed for like the December holidays or something. So I sort of tried a couple of jobs, which didn't last very long, because I think I kind of feel like I was holding out to work at this place. And then when they opened, I went, and that's basically how it started. And I was there for like 3 years, I think. Yeah, about 3.
Tell me, was it Stardust?
It was Stardust.
My research assistant for this podcast, Al Clapper, is going to be so happy that you said Stardust, because that is where he works, still works, but obviously now it's closed because of the pandemic. And he is also an incredible performer.
Oh, wow. And that's awesome.
Yeah. But he's gonna be like, yes, this is the moment during the podcast where he's air punching. Yes, Stardust.
Yeah, I worked there for 3 years and then left. It wasn't a great ending, but yeah.
But was this sort of a newfound love for you, like being on stage almost every night and entertaining people, and then also getting paid for it? I'm sorry that it didn't end very well. That's not nice. But I'm sure that there were some great moments while you were there.
Yeah, I mean, there were lots of great moments. I think it was a good sort of training ground for me, because, even though we were singing cover songs, right? I suppose, not even to say even though we were singing cover songs. We were singing cover songs, and that in itself is just a great way to learn how to sing different styles, and being able to do it every night, 4 or 5 times a week, was great in terms of like training your voice and learning how to work a crowd, like learning how to deliver your songs, learning things like dynamics in a song, because sometimes you can get a song and it sounds great, recorded and on radio, but it's quite a different thing to translate it live. Once you have people in the room and sort of faces to look at and energy to gauge. So it was very interesting. It was a very interesting learning curve for me. And obviously I met, different people who were musicians or training to be musicians. And it was a wonderful space in which I could meet different people and get into different types of musical communities, So like one of my friends used to be in a rock band, so we used to go and watch her rock shows. And then a friend of mine, Jamie, was in a swing band, and he was like, oh, we're looking for someone to sing vocals. And then I ended up singing in that swing band, it was an 8-piece swing band. And I ended up singing in that. And then, so there was just like different ways in which music sort of entered the conversation through the different people who were working there. And it was a beautiful thing. Like, I feel like if I hadn't done those 3 years, it would have been very difficult to sort of transition into being a live vocalist in the way that I am now. But maybe not difficult, but I think I wouldn't have found it as sort of normal, because like now singing on stage for me is normal. Singing for an hour, is normal. Like it's just stuff that I can do. Anything else that goes on top of that is stuff that I now have to sort of learn. But just the sort of very foundational stuff was normalized for me in those 3 years. And I'm hugely grateful for that.
Okay, so you're working at Stardust and you're performing regularly. And your mom gets the idea to put you onto this ad on Gumtree for a producer looking for a vocalist. Tell me about meeting and working with your first ever producer, Dice Jones, and your experience of making music with him. Because, you met him on Gumtree. Wasn't that a bit dodgy?
Well, it wasn't my mom. I put myself on there. And
okay.
Well, actually, no, I lied. That's not how it happened. How it happened was I was looking on Gumtree because I actually don't even know how people how we used that, because that was before SoundCloud, right? Like before, not before SoundCloud, but before I started using SoundCloud, because later SoundCloud sort of came later for me after that in terms of how I would find people. But in terms of like local, producers, that was like sort of my starting point. Like I didn't know. I think this was like maybe the second year or so that I had been in Cape Town, and I didn't know anybody at the time. So I went on Gumtree and I saw this advert, and Dice had put up this advert, and I sent him a message and I was like, yeah, I'm keen, to do some stuff. And he sent me some stuff, and then it actually turned out that he lived not so far from where I was in Kenilworth. And at the time, we used to go and record at Amin's studio, which is like at the back of his parents' house in Wynberg. That was like where I recorded my first 3 tracks, actually. And that was like, yeah. So from there, it just sort of went all over, I guess, because he made the first few tracks that I recorded, the first few house music tracks that I recorded. And because he speaks Portuguese, he put me in touch with producers from Angola, who I then started to work with, Scintillating, who's now in Portugal, and also Rosario, who's in Portugal as well. And that was amazing, because for me, I was like, this is great. I get to do this like house music that the Angolans make is very like, it's based off kuduro, which is so amazing because you've got like the drums in there, but there's just something so unique about it that I really enjoyed working with them. And then sort of from there, that's when it started to grow, because then Dice sent my vocals to Napa, who I've now worked with quite a few times. But at the time, I didn't know that he had sent my vocals to Inu to do this remix, right? So Inu does this remix of the first track that I recorded, and then like 3 years later, I get home from like New Year's Eve outing, and like people like sending me messages, and they're like, Black Coffee's playing your song on SABC or something. I didn't even know. And they were like, oh, he's playing your song. And then that's how I actually found out about that song. I didn't even know that the song existed at the time, because Inu had just put it up on SoundCloud, and then I don't know how Black Coffee managed to get it, and he started playing it, and it was just in the world, and I didn't even know that it existed. Yeah, and Dice and I are still like friends to this day. He doesn't produce music anymore, but he's someone who I hold very dear. Like, he's that one person I can chat to about everything, like all my music stuff, life stuff. And he's a great source of like knowledge and inspiration. He taught me a lot about like releasing my own music as well. Because quite a few years ago, he started DJs for Africa, which was sort of a portal that he wanted to grow in terms of putting all this African music together and releasing it and publishing it and stuff like that. So for me, it was a great way to sort of start with someone who wasn't really concerned about being in the mainstream. I think we came together because we knew we wanted to make music, and we just wanted to do as much as we could without any sort of goal to become mainstream or to make lots of money, or it was just that, like, how do we connect with people? And that was the other thing. Like, he really taught me how to work, what do they call it, laterally, like network laterally. He always used to say to me, even now he always tells me, he's like, just go for the people who are close to you, the people who are within your reach. Like, it's great to want to have those sort of big dreams of, oh, I want to work with so and so, I want to work with so and so, but he really taught me to like get in touch with the people who are on the same level as me and are making really amazing stuff, and then growing with those people, you know, building a community with those people, and building building a musical journey with them, as opposed to, you know, just kind of working with some people and then when you finally break, just like peace out, bye, but like actually growing together with people. And I'm really grateful to him for teaching me that, because that's a huge part of how I work now.
That's such a great piece of advice. Like, who would have known that you would get a lifelong homie from a Gumtree ad? Like, so crazy, so random. But do you think it's fair to say that round about that time, the time where you were, you know, you met Dice and you were recording your first few singles, do you think that was the time that you fell in love with house music, or have you always had an appreciation for it?
I've always had an appreciation for house music from when I was in Zim, you know, like I grew up listening to a lot of, like, obviously the 90s house music. And then when South Africa, you know, sort of opened up in a way, we used to get a lot of like BOP's music and like boom shaka. And when I say opened up, I mean like Channel O, you know, like when you could watch cable like on DSTV, and we'd watch the videos, and you know, so from there it just really, like, the seed was planted, and I fell in love with house music in ways that I actually don't even know or recognize the depth of, like, because like a couple of months ago, or actually more than a couple of months ago, I was doing this live stream, and I posted a clip of this live stream on my Instagram, and someone, it was actually Lene Denise who commented. She's a DJ and scholar, and she was like, I can hear Crystal Waters in those riffs, because I was doing like some ad libs, and like it's moments like that where I actually, like, it really hits me how embedded you know, that time or the music of that time is within me, even if I haven't listened to it in like a long time. Like, I can't even tell you when was the last time I listened to a Crystal Waters song. You know, like,
but it's
properly.
Just entrenched in you.
Yeah, but it's there. So I think it just sort of, yeah, it grew from that. And then when I was in the UK, I used to listen to a lot of funky house, UK funky house, and I fell in love with,
because the UK has its own banging house scene.
Yeah, they have this amazing UK funky house, which I absolutely love, and I just totally latched onto that. And then, of course, you know, sort of like soulful house. And then when I came here, I then discovered that there was just like this massive variance of house music. Like, you know, because when you're outside of South Africa, I don't think you understand exactly, unless you've engaged with the scene as much as some people do. But until I moved to South Africa, I just didn't know how much house music there was being made here, and the different subgenres, the different styles, you know. So I think moving to South Africa just helped me appreciate house music even more.
Do you reckon you're the type of person who'll go to a party because like a specific DJ is playing? Or do you reckon you could just go to any party where like good house music is being played and like get lost in it and dance to it all night?
I'll go to any party.
Okay.
I really go to any party. The only time I'll go to see a specific DJ is if I haven't seen that DJ before and there's absolutely no chance that I'll get to see them again. You know, like there's some people who I'll be like, ah, man, I really need to hear this person play. But for the most part, and I mean, that for me is what I appreciate about house music, is that, DJs can play anything. People don't have to know the names of the songs. They don't even have to know the songs. They don't even have to know how to sing the songs. It's a vibe. So for me, yeah, definitely, I'd go to any party that plays house
I've read
music.
about certain DJs in the house community who play quote unquote unshazamables. And I think like the name sort of gives it away, but I don't want to be presumptuous. So please, if you would be so kind as to break down the anatomy of an unshazamable.
Wow. I mean, it's in the name, right? It's basically, you lift up your phone when you hear like a banging song playing. You try to Shazam it, and then Shazam tells you they can't find that song. So
is the DJ there behind the decks like smiling to himself like, ha?
I mean, it depends. Because I feel like people in the house music community, at least, really, things like exclusives are a big deal for DJs, because, DJs in a way are like the influencers in house music. They're the tastemakers. They're the ones who break the tracks. And so typically having an unshazamable song, means that at least for a while, like before the song becomes like a common a song, or is released, or whatever, you're that one person who has that song, and then people will kind of associate you with a sort of breaking new music or talent, even, like depending on your visibility within the scene. Some DJs are very well known for being the ones to introduce new talent to audiences in remarkable ways. So I mean, yeah, so the unshazamables they're very precious. And also I think it just comes from that sort of tradition of DJ culture of being the educator. You want to be that person who's like, yeah, I'm the one that put you on. Like, I'm the one that put you on to this, and like, and there's an identity thing to it as well. It's like, because not all the DJs will have all the exclusives, you know what I mean? Like, they're like, people will have certain kinds of exclusives, or like certain subgenres of exclusives, and be known, sort of for that. Or if you're a producer, it's a great way to break music that you're working on and is going to come out, in the future, and you're kind of getting to test that music. And the producers who do that now, they just make stuff, and also even just to make their sets fun, like now Inu has apparently another remix of the Conqueror track that he did a few years ago, and he only plays it for his sets. It's not a song that we think of releasing. He doesn't even want to give it to me to play. Actually, I lied. He said yes, but I'm still waiting for it. I'm just like, where is the track? But I understand, because like people want to be able to differentiate and separate themselves from everybody, because there's a lot of DJs out there.
Well, I mean, talking about differentiating yourself, I mean, one of the things that I find astounding about you is that you've never actually sat down with a pen and a paper to write lyrics to a song, which I find phenomenal. So talk to me about your writing process, because some of your lyrics at times can deal with pretty heavy subject matter and tackle some like real topics. So talk to me about your process when you're in studio, or when you're conceptualizing a song in your head, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so it's really weird, because I feel like sometimes I feel like if I did write my song, I would have like a method to it. Like there's this writing course by Pat Benatar, I think that's his name. Pat Patterson. Why am I saying Pat Benatar? Pat Patterson, because you're making me think of UCT. Pat Patterson, who is he's a songwriting like lecturer or coach or lecturer at Berkeley, right? And Kosarais, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, has this amazing course by him on songwriting, which I've taken like several times. just to sort of like refresh. And I've read some of the books, and he has like quite a methodical way of doing it. Like, you write it down, you get some words, and then you look for rhymes, and then you do that kind of stuff. So like I've always felt like maybe like my writing would be a lot easier if I did something like that, like sat down and was a bit more methodical with my writing. But I've just never been able to take to that. There's a couple of things that I do that I learned in that course, but apart from that, it's just, I don't know. I think the reason why I do it that way is because I don't have I prefer to go with the feeling, really. That's pretty much how I do it. So even when I'm writing, I'm moving around. These days, not so much. But when I was in Cape Town, even when I moved to Joburg, I used to walk a lot. So whether
even in Joburg,
walking to work or
brave.
Like I'd catch the taxi. I used to catch 2 taxis to go to work. So I would, like, in between, I was walking at least 20-30 minutes. So I would put music on that I'm working on, and I would walk and write or whatever. So there's always some movement involved. Now that I'm not doing a lot of that, I try to keep to write while I'm standing or moving around. It just helps, I guess, in that way, because I feel like I love dancing. That's the other thing. It's like I love to dance. So whenever I'm writing house music, especially, like, it has to make sense. Like, it has to make sense what's in my head, what's coming out of my mouth, and how my body moves as a result.
So if it's not making you move, then you're like, nope, out the window.
Well, not that. Like, it depends. It's really about how the movement happens. It doesn't have to be anything serious, but in a way, the body needs to respond in a way that makes sense, that's flowing.
So an organization that you are a part of and that I'm also a part of is She Said So, which, for people listening who don't know what it is, it's a global community of women and minorities in the music industry who work with and empower each other through our connections and our knowledge. And last year, you were included in She Said So's Alternative Power 100 music list. Now, this list was born as a response to Billboard's Power 100 list, with the aim of the list being to challenge conventional music industry standards. And over the past couple of years, this list has evolved to become basically like a celebration for traditionally underrepresented communities. And when I saw your name on it, I was like, it's about time. But what did it feel to be included in a list like that? Because there were some heavy hitters on that list last year.
I was actually shocked because I didn't like. Yeah, I was just like, I didn't know what to say, because every time, when you're doing what you're doing, when you're doing the work, you don't really know how far it's gonna go or who's going to be watching or who's going to appreciate the work that you do, or that I do as an artist or in any other capacity. So for me, it was just like, it was very I couldn't believe it. I was just like, what? Like, I was like, what am I doing here? But yeah, I mean, I've had to learn how to take compliments. I'm very bad at it, but I'm learning.
You must be dying with this podcast, because that's all I'm doing.
I'm just like, I'm very bad. I'm very bad at taking compliments. But yeah, I'm learning how to do it, and I really struggle with being in the moment and appreciating something for what it is, for like giving something time, basically. So I'm like one of those people who's like, oh yay, that's really amazing, and then I go, what's next? Like I move on to the next thing, or I always feel like there's something else to do. But yeah, that's pretty much that's how I felt. Like I looked at that and I was like, oh wow, that's super cool. That's really amazing. And then yeah, how do I keep doing what I'm doing? Which I know is not good, but yeah,
Are
like I
you the
said.
kind of person who just like works, and never really takes a moment to reflect on like all the amazing things that you're doing? And the reason that I asked this question is that I kind of, I identify with that a lot. I feel like, sometimes you just put your head down and you just work, and then things happen around you, like really cool things happen around you, and you're like, like you just said, what's the next thing? And I feel like it's really important to take that time out, even if it's just like 5 minutes to go, yay, and like high five yourself and then move on.
Yeah, that's me. That's me. I'm always moving on. Like that's like the other day. I wrote an article. It took me so long to get to this point where I was happy with the story, and um, you know, like the day it came out, I was so excited, and then like the second day, when I saw more and more people were sharing it, I was just like, wow, this is really amazing. And yeah, like after that, I was like, okay, what's the next thing? Because I'm just one of those people who I'm constantly chasing something, you know, uh, like I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh, I want to do this, and then I decide I'm going to do it, and depending on how long it takes or how frustrating it is, I eventually do it, or I do it immediately, depending on what it is. And then I just move on to the next thing. Like, I just feel like there's no time to, yeah, to sit around and be like, yeah, I did this thing. And it's like, I haven't even posted about that article yet. I was thinking I need to do it today because I'm just like onto something else now, which I'm not saying is good, but yeah, that's pretty much what I do. It's not a great thing to do, and I really understand what you're saying about like taking time out, and so like this year I'm really trying to do that like a lot more. Although sometimes I don't do it as well as I should. Yeah, a lot of the time.
The article that you uh, mentioned now that you're talking about, is that the one that you wrote for Groove called The Untold Story of Women in Afro-house?
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, well, that article, let me just give you props right now, is phenomenal. It's so insightful, and the way that you highlight the story of the three women who are very crucial to the genre. I mean, would you mind like giving me a brief background and profile into each of these women? Because I just love their stories, and I really think that our audience would appreciate them too.
Yeah, sure. So this article came about. It's something I've been wanting to do for many years. So, a few years ago, I started this project called Women of House, which is basically just me posting on my socials. Like on a Wednesday, I'd find a vocalist to post and like shout her out and stuff like that. And a couple of times, or more than a couple of times, I would look up songs that I grew up listening to, and I didn't know who the vocalist was. And then it would turn out, that the vocalist was, say, Monique Bingham, if it was Blue Six, or, Shingai, who sang Dennis Ferrer's Hey Hey, and she wasn't credited on it. So it ended up being like this sort of ongoing project that then became, so it was a social media thing, and then I did a compilation, and then I've always been wanting to write about house music vocalists. I just didn't know how I would do it. And at some point I want to write like a book chapter, or, an actual book. So this was like the sort of starting part of it. And I had this idea. I was going to interview Usi even, and Toshi, and like a bunch of other women, but then I didn't get those interviews. And then I ended up with 3 interviews with really amazing, amazing women. And I wanted to sort of write the stories intertwined type thing. And then it turned out, for me at least, that the best way to do it was to give each woman her space, because they all have different stories and they're from different parts of the world, and they're from different times within the story of house, or at least within the story of Afro house. So you have Anane Vega, who is very accomplished. She's a vocalist, she's a producer. She runs a label called Nulu Music, and Nulu stands for Nothing Ultimately Leaves Us. And I just absolutely love that. And she's been releasing Afro House for the past like 10 years, you know, from a very early stage within the genre. And she's helped to put a lot of artists on the map, you know, through releasing with her label. And she's a DJ, you know, she's just done so many amazing things, and she's still very relevant. That for me is like the most remarkable thing, is that she has this almost 20-year career. And just the other day I saw she was like number one on Traxsource, you know. Like she just keeps going. You know, and then Lizwi, who I absolutely adore. She's this young South African vocalist who's making an insane amount of music right now. Like I cannot fathom, like the sheer amount of music that she's making is just ridiculous. Like, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but like she's just making so many tunes with everybody from everywhere. Yeah, and she's just churning out these features, but they're all good, they're all amazing, and they're being played. And what I really appreciate about what she's doing, unlike a lot of other vocalists, is that she's making sure that she gets the recognition along with doing these features. So she's not just singing on people's songs, but she's making sure they do videos. She's making sure, you know, that the songs go on radio. She's making sure, or at least she's making sure that she's working with people who have plans to do all of these things, so that it's not like she just writes a song and then nobody knows what she looks like, or nobody, you know, knows who sang the song. So I think for me, she's really being very courageous in how she works. And I suppose that's sort of like the plus side of being a vocalist with a voice that she has and being in high demand. And you hope that everybody gets that kind of treatment, you know. But she's amazing. She's really great, and she's such a fantastic and very positive person, and very ambitious. And then there's Awen, who's French Senegalese, and she's based in Paris. And I love Awen so much because her music is just, and I mean, this is obviously within the tradition of house music as a whole, right? You know, thinking of its roots, thinking of the types of songs that people sing traditionally, at least in house music, there's always a component that is inspirational, that speaks to current times, and she does that so beautifully with her music. And I really enjoyed speaking to her about that, because she was named after Dulcie September, who is a South African activist. And you can really tell that, apart from just being very, very talented, for her, being a vocalist is not just about making songs, you know. It's about the message. And that comes through her music through and through. And she hasn't really been in the scene for a very long time, but in the short time that she has been in the scene, she's definitely made some really amazing songs that have done quite well, at least in my opinion. Yeah, so I just really wanted to talk about the women behind the songs, you know, that people play, because often the spotlight is given to the DJs and the producers.
100%,
and it's not to say that they don't deserve it, but I just feel that, you know, it's an unbalanced tale, you know. It has so many holes in it if we're only focusing on one side of the story. So yeah, I'm hoping to do more of that. I don't know how, but yeah, I'm hoping to do that more in the future, definitely.
But what a great summation of the article that you wrote. And for anybody who wants to read it, hopefully by the time this podcast comes out, Jackie will have posted it on her social media.
I'll do it today. Yo, pressure.
I'm lighting that fire under your ass. But another project of yours that I mean I have a great deal of love for is your free guide to collaboration for SA house music vocalists and producers who are starting out. And in this very succinct 4-page guide, you cover all the basics that like any muso would need to know, from the splits to the paperwork to the actual releasing of the song. Why did you think it was so important to put this guide together?
For me, it was about sharing the information that I know, firstly. Because, I mean, I've been doing this, I've been saying 7, 8 years, but then I realized the other day that it's actually 10, which is really weird.
A decade. We need to pop some champagne here.
Yeah, I was at my mom's house, and I was going through like CDs and stuff, and then I saw a CD of what Matthew Moorman's very first album. I sang a song on there. We used to work together at Stardust. I sang a song on there, and I looked at the back and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is 2010." So I kind of feel like, yeah, I don't even know why I truncated it, but anyway, point is, I've been doing this for that long, and every single time I work with people, I, without fail, encounter a lack of knowledge. Always. It's not, and it's not even something that is that's limited to young producers or producers who are just starting out. I remember once a few years ago, I did a feature for these producers who have been in the industry for a very long time. I was like, okay, they've been doing this for ages, and the contract that they sent me was just, it was horrific. I was just like, you can't expect me to sign this, So that was basically my contribution to hopefully, getting people to understand the basics about what they need to know to protect themselves, to protect their work, and to operate in a way that is honest and with integrity, And also, if you know the right way to do something, then it's very difficult for people to take advantage of you. So for me, it was also that, because it's like you have a lot of people who are taking advantage of each other.
So was there an instance where you maybe got burned and you thought, wow, I could have handled this better if I'd had the tools to equip myself? Or was it born more out of a necessity to educate?
It's both. I mean, the very first contract that I signed was horrible. It was a horrible contract.
I'm sorry that happened.
It was a horrible contract, but it was for one song. It's not like I was signing away my life or whatever for like my whole career. But
the scary thing is that some artists do, and they don't even know.
Yeah, it was for one song. So the thing is, I found out very soon after the contract was finalized. And I went back to them, and then I was like, hey, you know what? Is there any chance we can renegotiate this? And they were like, no. And so from then on, it was just like, and this was very early on in my career, actually, like when I started releasing music. So I'm grateful for that. So once that had happened, I was just like, you know what? I'm not trying to do that. But then subsequent to that, it was just the frustration of having to deal with people who don't know, and then constantly having to explain to people why you need to do things in a particular way, or having to justify as a vocalist, not even as a vocalist, as a writer, as a composer, why I need to get a certain percentage of my composition, and publishing, and how it needs to be done, and all of that. And I think the Brink was like like a week before I wrote that guide, I was involved in this massive like back and forth with producers on Twitter. So that was just
really?
You know what? Yeah, it was. Yeah, we were having the very same discussion about splits. And I was like, you can't be saying you're going to give somebody like 5% or whatever. Like it was a very small amount because you have to now go out and, put money towards the marketing and whatever. You can't take royalties from somebody. So we were having this like huge discussion about that, and part of it also is like where people don't understand that the vocalists in this country, at least, do both singing and writing. So if I was going to write a song and I wanted you to come and sing on it, I would pay you a session fee.
Right? You wouldn't want me to come and sing on it, but anyway, yes, continue.
But I'd pay you a session fee. And, I'd get, my publishing or whatever. But somehow people don't understand that. They think, okay, I'm just not going to pay a vocalist to sing on the song. And I'm just not going to give her any royalties or any splits because she's not the first named artist. It's my song, So people just don't get that. So I was really frustrated. And I think within 24 hours of having that conversation, I decided that was what I was going to do. And then I kind of wrote it within like 8 hours and I published it.
When I posted about the guide on Texx in the City, you told me at the time you were also looking at getting the guide translated into different African languages. How's that endeavor going? Is there any progress on that front?
No, there isn't, because I haven't like actually started pursuing it. But I am thinking of applying to some things to see if I can get some of the cash to do that. So
okay.
Yeah, I am. I'm actually working on an application now this week to hand it in at the end of the week. So I'm still planning on doing that. I'm actually planning on, at the start, trying to get enough money to translate it into the three most popular languages in the country, and then doing like audio, because I'm also trying not to fall into the trap of making it just accessible to people who have access to the internet and stuff. So that's why I made like a PDF version of it so that people could share it like on WhatsApp and stuff. So I'm also thinking in terms of like accessibility, not just for people who can see, so I'm thinking of maybe in my thing including some kind of audio component to it, like little snippets with like just the most important information, and then maybe making it like a website or something. I don't know, but we'll see. We just need to pray to baby Jesus that the money will come from somewhere.
I pray to him every night. but I want to take the opportunity. I mean, you never know who's listening to this podcast. And, if there's someone out there who's listening and you're passionate about helping our musicians equip themselves with knowledge that they otherwise would not have, and you speak an African language and you want to get involved with Jackie's cause, please hit her up. Like where can people get hold of you? Where would the best bet be?
The best bet would be to message me on Instagram.
Cool.
Jackie Queens.
That's simple enough.
Yes. The best bet would be find me on Instagram. I'm usually quite active on there. Or Twitter, Jackie Queens SA. I'm also very active on there. So if you just like call at me on either one of those, I'll respond.
Well, Jackie, I just wanted to say thank you very much for joining me in studio today. And I look forward to the next chapter and seeing what you'll be applying your skills to next. I've always got my eye on your socials.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. Let's take care of our mothers, sisters, and children.
shout out to Jackie Queens for joining us in studio. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Texx Talks. Be sure to check out textalks.com for more episodes. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Castbox, or listen to Texx Talks on all good streaming platforms. Also, a huge shout out to Tom's, the only music store, for being the most incredible technical supplier. From myself, Texx, our producers Jonathan Ings and Matthew Lewitz, and our research assistant Al Clapper, catch you on the flip side.